When I was asked to speak about creative meal planning, I just thought, I don't dare to do this by myself. Because as a ketogenic dietitian and my nurse practitioner Pilar, we're really backstage. We're kind of orchestrating what has to happen with the diet, but the creativity, the persistence, the long cooking nights and long cooking days is really done by our wonderful ketogenic parents. We really don't do much in that regards. That's why I really invited Jeff to join me, because creativeness comes from them. We need a lot of creativeness when we're pursuing the ketogenic diet, because there are tricky days and tricky situations. And we're going to talk about a couple of them, and we're going to try to give you tips from a dietitian's perspective and from a ketogenic dad's perspective. So tricky days. What if your child is a very picky eater? Special needs children can be very picky eater, as well as, the other population, especially regarding toddlers. You could have days where, you have your son or your daughter on the ketogenic diet and they don't want to eat. What are you going to do? What if, they're not picky eaters, they eat well, but they're just bored of the same thing over and over? We're going to try to give you some ketogenic creative meal ideas as well. What if, they eat so well that they're hungry all the time? How are we going to tackle that, right? Because on the ketogenic diet, there is some rigidity. There's no room to just be eating all day long. And then finally, actually, this is last but not least, there are special events, and we want our ketogenic children to have birthday parties and go to school and eat out and so on and so forth, go to the theater or go to the movies. So we're going to try to tackle that as well. And then we have some of our older kids and really some of our toddlers too. They really want independence. They're done with spoon feeding and, mom and dad deciding every single thing about the diet. They want some control, and it's normal, and we would like for them to have some control. So for picky eater, this is what I'm going to give you guys as a dietitian. This is my tip. There is a division of responsibility in feeding. There's a little bit of a rule, and it was created by an OT called Ellen Sater. And this is what she says. She says that as a parent, you will decide what your son or daughter will eat, when, and where. Your child will decide whether he or she will eat and how much. And this applies for any child, and of course, it has to apply to some extent to the ketogenic diet. If we try to kind of swap those things around, where mom is trying to decide that the child has to eat all of it, or, all of it and right now, it's going to be an issue, and it will just create like a power of struggle, and meals can become very stressful, very unpleasant, and a big disaster. And we don't want that to happen, because we know that the ketogenic diet can be very successful to treat epilepsy. So a parent's tip would be
when you're starting out your menu, you want to think about what your kids like to eat. They may love chicken nuggets, they may like puffs, they might like mac and cheese. Just because you're on keto doesn't mean that this is going to go away. It just means it has to be altered. You can make mac and cheese out of cauliflower. You can make puffs out of egg whites and gelatin. You can make chicken nuggets with ground up chicken breast, almond meal, oil, and eggs. So you really need to just look at what your kid likes today, and you can alter and make it a keto-friendly version of it.
I told you guys, I can't do this without them. I would have never come up with those ideas. All right, so a tip from a dietitian regarding what if your child just refuses to eat or drink. First of all, stay calm. All right? Then this applies really to anyone. If you're having a meal experience and you're angry, frustrated, demanding, pulling your hair and stamping your feet, this will trickle into the child. And then again, the mealtime will become very unpleasant and very non-normal. We don't want that to happen. If you're trying to feed your child and it's been more than 20 minutes, you have to stop. Anything above and beyond 20 minutes is not normal, and it will create more anxiety, more pressure, more frustration. And again, we just don't want these things to arise. A very good tip for ketogenics: if you have your ketogenic meal in front of you, right, and it's been weighed to the 1/10 of the decimal, and it's a 4-to-1 ratio, and all those things that the ketogenic team has orchestrated in the background, at least try to eat around your plate. So your child will get a little bit of the fat, a little bit of the carb, and a little bit of the protein, and maybe even some of the cream. That's really what a ketogenic meal looks like. If your child eats only the broccoli and stops, then out the window goes your ketogenic ratio. So at least try to kind of teach them to eat around the plate, and they will decide how much, going back to our rules, right? It's normal if your child is going through a food jag. It's not the ketogenic diet. It may be just normal behavioral for their age. And you know what? We have a lot of parents that want to go home with 50 meals. And I'm in my office trying to plug in all these meals, and I don't have the creativeness for it. And I usually tell my parents, guys, when you go home, you'll see it may boil down to 5. And you're not a bad parent if you're doing only 5 meals. Please keep it simple. Don't overwhelm yourself. Have a couple more. Try to keep a consistent schedule. I think our neuropsychologist was talking about routine and structure. This applies to meals. If your child expects a meal at a certain time, not only will they prepare themselves mentally, but they're going to have these hunger cues every day at the same time. And that's going to help with the keto meal itself. AllinOne Meals will give you some ideas. Instead of tackling the plate separately, you can create a ketogenic meal like in one single menu. And a very dietitian-driven or nurse practitioner-driven recommendation may be, you know what, guys, maybe classic ketogenic diet is not for you. Let's try the modified Atkins, which provides a little bit more it's a little bit more liberal. So this is where, with our clinical knowledge, we might be able to give you guys some tips. I just have a slide with AllinOne Meals, and you guys have the slides in your app. So if you're trying to come up with some easy to tackle meals, these are some of the ideas that we have there for you. All right.
Okay. My daughter is a very difficult eater, and we had to go through unbelievable nightmares to get her to finally start eating. And we found that AllinOne Meals were the way to go. She eats the same 3 meals every day for the last 4 months, and it's okay. I freaked out. But back up a little bit. Where we began was I made a huge mistake. I put the meds in her food. And she taught me very quickly she did not like this. Not only did she not like this, she didn't like me or the food and would not eat. So we had to start from scratch. And what we did was we ended up going, okay, well, what does she like to eat? And at that point, it was nothing because I blew it. And so I spent hours and hours and hours in the kitchen cooking and cooking and cooking. And I found one thing she ate for 2 months for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and that was chocolate brownies. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner for 2 months. But it reset her. It got her to trust me again. It got her to trust food again, and we started all over. Really, the key is you got to find out, what's your kid like, and don't overdo it. Don't overthink it. It's okay to eat the same thing as long as they're eating and they're getting their ratio and they're getting their calories.
I love the word reset. I'm going to start using the word more often because everybody has to reset their mind when you're doing keto. As a dietitian, I have to reset. 90% fat, really? We're not taught to do that, right? But it is ketogenics. Balance and variety, store it in your attic or somewhere. Just focus and let's have your child eat ketogenic ratio and ketogenic calories. So the dietitian has to reset, the parents have to reset, the child has to reset, and it's okay to keep it simple. So I like that word. Oh, this is you actually, because I had no idea. I had no tips for this, and Jeff had a whole bunch, so let me let him talk about it.
One of our biggest challenges in the keto community is getting fluids into our kids. For my daughter, our goal is to get 30 ounces into her, and I don't think we do that ever. And we chart it every day, but we can typically get 20 ounces in. But a lot of people can't even get that in when they're supposed to get up into 30. So what you can look at doing is make slushies from ice and flavor it with Da Vinci syrups or other sugar-free, carb-free flavorings. Try different temperature drinks. Some kids have sensory issues, so you can go with warm water, room temperature, cold water. Experiment with different sugar-free and carb-free flavorings. There's a bunch of them on the market now. Publix has tons of them. And last is you can always syringe it. A lot of our kids get meds through syringe. They're used to it. It's a good way to pump fluids in, and they don't fight it.
Actually, guys, we forgot to ask the audience who is doing ketogenics at this point in time. Okay, good, good. Who's never done keto and is thinking of doing keto? Okay, great, very good, very good. All right, very good. We just wanted to get a sense as to where we were at. All right, so again, what if you have a keto patient that's not very picky, that's eating but is bored? What do you do? And of course, very logic, add variety. And some of the tips I've shared with parents is, look, do new textures. What if you're doing scrambled eggs with sausage every single day? Maybe they want more crunch. So then you could do raw veggies or flaxseed crackers, or there's such a wide variety of textures. Maybe you need to introduce a new texture. Maybe they want a different shape. They're tired of seeing the same old bowl. So maybe you can cut keto bread into a star, or maybe you can cut your carrots round versus sticks. So sometimes that will put more interest into the meal, and that will take away a little bit of how bored they are with the things that you're preparing. Maybe colors. Maybe you've been presenting yellow meals or white meals for a very long time. Maybe they want to see reds and blues, like blueberries look beautiful in a ketogenic meal, and they give a lot of bulk, so they're actually a wonderful food to go. So think of these things. Don't think of very hard meals to prepare with difficult ingredients to find. Maybe just think of basics like texture, shape, color, presentation. Maybe your child is ready to do finger feeding, and as long as the food stays on their high chair or their table, and it's not all over the floor, the dog is eating the ketogenic meal, let them experience a little bit of finger feeding, and maybe that's going to help them with how bored they are. And finally, there are some items that can be calculated into your ketogenic meals, and this may arouse some interest, like sugar-free jello, avocado, cheese. Instead of just butter, you can use sour cream or cream cheese. Maybe different oils. I know Jeff is very big on avocado oil, which I had never thought of. Maybe they want to experience a different flavor. Maybe they want nuts. It's another good source of fat, and it's crunchy, and you can do finger feeding. If they're bored with cream, which is a very important component of ketogenics, and a lot of kids really get very bored with the cream, we can be creative. We can sweeten them. As Jeff mentioned, there are a lot of sweeteners and artificial flavors out there that are allowed within the ketogenic diet. Maybe you've never thought of changing the temperature. Warm up your cream, add some unsweetened Hershey cocoa, of course calculated into your software. Maybe they want to drink warm cocoa. Maybe whip it. Just whip it, and they can eat it as a dessert or a pudding, if you will. Maybe you can mix it into a sugar-free, caffeine-free soda. There's a chocolate brand out there, and kids like to make, I think they're called floaties. So, that's something very interesting for them. Or if they're just refusing cream, just do more fats. And a lot of our families do a lot of coconut oil, a lot of avocado, and cream slowly but surely can be taken out of most of the meals if it's really causing trouble. There's a lot of commercially available ketogenic foods. These are some of the options that are out there. And there are a lot of low-carb items that can now be purchased. I have some samples there for you. And some other ideas, like for taco shells, for burritos, for quesadillas, for pizzas, you can use egg whites. For pizza, you can use egg whites or eggplant or pepperonis as a crust. For pasta, you can use spaghetti squash. To bread, a lot of our kids like the breaded chicken nuggets. You can do ground nuts instead of course, breading. Some of our families have also used lettuce to create burritos and wraps. So again, there are a lot of alternatives, and they can be incorporated. I think I skipped you. Sorry. We'll get back to keto dad in 2 seconds. What if they're hungry all the time? Maybe, guys, it's not hunger. So usually when parents call me and they're like, look, they're super hungry, I'm like, is it hunger? Are you sure? Maybe you're thinking your child is hungry because you're uncomfortable serving them such little small meals, because our parents are very concerned. It looks like very little food. We're like, yeah, but remember, most of the calories are fat. So kind of hang in there. The calories are there, and the satiety will be there eventually. So make sure it's behavior. Buy smaller plates, guys. If you're using like a standard plate and the food is in the middle, anyone will be hungry because it comes through your eyes first. So buy smaller veggies. If you guys are using the Charlie Foundation Keto Calculator software, Group A veggies, those of you that use Keto Calculator know what I'm talking about. Group A veggies and fruit 10% provide more bulk. Use your free foods. Make sure that they're eating everything, right? So this is where Jeff is going to talk to you guys in a few seconds about spatulas. You guys have to scrape everything off the plate because 2-3 grams of fat, that's calories, that's ratio, that's part of your ketogenic meal. If they leave that behind over and over, yeah, they'll be hungry, but it's really because they're not finishing their meal. Fluids, as mean as it sounds, sometimes I'm like, oh boy, what am I saying? Fluids will provide satiety. Yeah, it's not nutrition, but it will cause some satiety. And if that provides comfort to your child, well, we have to go for it, right? And then really, again, as a clinician, along with my nurse practitioner, we'll be like, okay, they haven't gained weight, they're not growing very well. Maybe they are hungry because they just need more nutrition. So we revamp the caloric prescription, and yeah, we allow them to eat more if they're able to eat more. All right?
I have a question.
Sure.
What about nutrition?
I'm sorry?
Nutrition.
Yes, so we're very vigilant about nutrition because we want our children to gain weight and to grow to their potential, right? So not only are we very vigilant about how many calories they really need, especially over the course of 2 years, if this is how long your child will be on ketogenics, we also provide them with enough vitamins and minerals through special supplements. So as lopsided as the diet can be, we're trying to kind of, balance it as much so that we are providing good nutrition as much as we can within the nature of the diet. Mm-hmm.
Okay. After a few weeks of us being on the diet, we definitely went through stages of, oh my gosh, she's so hungry. And she definitely reduced her feeling of hunger as the diet went on. I personally went on the diet myself in January, so I could fully understand how she feels. And it's an interesting process going on the diet because you do go through stages of nausea and tired, and then you go through stage of hyper energy. And these are all things I was seeing out of my daughter. If your kids are still acting like they're hungry, you can take a breakfast and break it in half. You can do a breakfast at 8:30 and do a breakfast at 9:30. Try to make it as simple as possible and follow the KISS rule. The thing that I go to and is in every single one of my daughter's meals is avocado oil. And the reason why I use that is it's one of the healthiest oils you can find. It will reduce cholesterol. It did for me. I went from 350 to 170. And it reduced my daughter's significantly because her cholesterol kept going up and I couldn't get it stopped. Avocado oil also is a great tool for killing appetite. It really, really, really reduces things. So that's why with every single meal that I make for her, avocado oil goes into it. And she's not hungry. She eats what she needs to. We use small bowls, goes in, and she's not asking for more.
Do you syringe it or do you put it in with her stuff?
I put it in with her food. 99% of all the food that I can get into her is all-in-one meals. Before we did that, I would do syringes, and then I would take a little, just a little water, a little Da Vinci syrup, avocado, shake it up, and then I could syringe it into her mouth.
Mm-hmm. You have a question?
Is avocado oil more the consistency of coconut oil or like extra virgin olive oil?
It would be.
I've never seen it before.
Yeah, it's closer to extra virgin.
Good.
Yeah,
Okay.
it does not. It doesn't have a horrible taste. It's very, very mild. You can get it at Costco the cheapest. It's like $8 a bottle.
Okay. Does your child like coconut oil?
Nah, not really. I mean,
Mine despises it, so I wanted to know, but she likes avocado?
she likes the avocado oil.
Okay.
That's definitely our go-to.
Okay, great.
Guys, and I just have to say that I give you guys so much credit. For those of you that are on keto, your creativeness, your insightfulness, you guys are so relentless. I would have never known this, so keep up the good work, and really, he should be the one talking, not me. So eating out. I struggled with this slide. I've never gone out to eat with any of my patients. So this is what I thought is, maybe bring your scale. No, okay, X that out. I was thinking, bring your scale, maybe bring some cream and some fat and kind of make it work, but perhaps that's not the best option. bring a keto meal from home. Bring a keto meal from home, and maybe to be solidary with your child, order something similar, and maybe others in the household can do the same. Why not? Hey, we're a family. We're trying to do this together. And, speak to the manager. If I was just thinking, because I've heard it about other special needs children with other scenarios, if you find a restaurant where the manager is helpful and they're willing to accommodate, well, keep going there, right? It's going to be like a family-friendly, ketogenic-friendly place to go. So keep going there. There may be some places that...
The one thing the only time my daughter had a problem, and she's on almost 10 years on it, was when we ordered appetizers and she couldn't eat. If we could all eat together at the same time, then she's fine. She doesn't care what we eat. Till this day, she doesn't care.
That's a wonderful tip. And I mean, even if I were at a table and wasn't able to eat and everybody's eating, I would be very upset. Yeah.
We ended up getting all the food and going home. It was a disaster, but that was the only time in almost 10 years.
There has to be some solidarity, guys, right? I mean, everybody has to eat their own thing. Not everybody has to go on keto, but I think that's a wonderful comment. So, I've had better ideas, so let's see.
Okay, what I would suggest is try to have a few cold meals to have it easy to go in. You don't have to worry about warming it up. Some restaurants are a little funny about warming up food. I learned the hard way. I don't really trust restaurants at this point to warm them up. The first time we did it, I had an all-in-one meal. It was in a wrapper. Say, can you please warm this up? We'll think about it. Got the manager. He said yes. It came back with food on it that wasn't in. So they used the dirty whatever. So that was the end of me going that way. So how do we solve that problem? So if we're going out to eat, which we do not do, but if we go to the hospital for a visit, we're going to be there for most of the day, and she has to eat. So I found on Amazon there's portable ovens that you can plug into your car, and within 30 minutes, which for me coming down here is about an hour, but for 30 minutes I can have a nice hot meal for her, and we can feed her at the hospital or wherever we're at, which makes it really, really easy. I mean, you can go ahead and you can call ahead when you're going to a restaurant and talk to the manager and say, look, this is a medical diet. This is really, really serious. And go through that process, explain to them. And, worst comes to worst, what I did for one of the restaurants that didn't want to do it is, look, charge me the most expensive meal on the thing for kids and just warm up my meal. And they're happy to do that usually. But still, I guess the word of caution I would be is if you're going to have them warm up the food, just make sure you look at it, that there's nothing added, because it can happen, because they just don't understand it.
Sometimes, guys, they won't understand. My daughter's on the ketogenic diet, or my son tell them he has a severe allergy. They get very nervous. They don't want to have to call, because if you have a severe allergy, you can have an anaphylactic shock. They don't want to call 911 to the restaurant, so you can tell them, look, she has a severe peanut allergy. I just came up with that. I'm just thinking that might really work, because they're more familiarized with it, and they'll do whatever it takes. Okay, so special events. So yes.
Do you have any cold meal option examples?
Let's see.
Ham and cheese with mayo and lettuce. I can think of.
Cheese. Well, a good thing to do is also one of our used to go-to meals was turkey. We would take some Parmesan. Take the Parmesan, grate it onto some paper, put it in the oven, bake it into a chip, and that works really well. And then my daughter is really funny about eating, and so a lot of it had to do with the fats in terms of getting her creams and things and oils. We always syringed it right into her.
So guys, if you guys are going to go to a party, right, very likely you're going to have to bring your things pre-measured, but again, for solidarity, maybe you can bring some keto items that are child-friendly and party-friendly. So I came up with ideas like, why not have creamsicles, like cream and milk and sugar-free sweeteners, and everybody can have a cream popsicle. You can bring some pepperoni chips. You get the pepperonis, you microwave them. Instead of potato chips, everybody can eat pepperoni chips. The famous pork rinds. We're Hispanic down here, so everybody goes for the pork rinds. You can do a cute platter with, lunch meat and cheese roll-ups. Everybody's going to go for that, and your child can have some too, as long as it's been weighed before, of course. Everybody likes tuna salad. You can bring a nice tuna salad with raw veggies. Everybody can have that. Other friends can eat along with your child, as long as you've weighed everything again. Veggies and dressing is a famous party platter, guacamole with olive oil. Everybody will go for that as well. There are some nice ketogenic chocolate candy and coconut candy recipes in the Charlie Foundation website. Have everybody eat a little bit of that. Then your child can feel, okay, I'm not just the only one. They may have upset stomach after the other kids, but hey. And then birthdays. You know what? A lot of my families told me, oh, you know what? We're just not going to do birthdays. I'm like, no, there are birthday cake recipes. They are in the Charlie Foundation website and, other Facebook groups. Dravet dietary approaches, by the way, I've heard is fabulous when it comes to recipes. So these are some of the Charlie Foundation recipes, and I'm sure you guys have even more. Jeff?
No, I guess the first rule with anything is breathe. We always look at things and go, oh, this is going to be the worst case scenario. Take a breath. You can get through it. It's a wise idea to, call the person that's hosting the party and say, look, my kid's coming. Thank you so much for inviting them. But they're not going to be able to partake in the food, but don't worry, we're going to bring our own food. What are you going to have? And you can modify just about anything to look like and to feel like so that they're participating into the activity. But really, with anything, we tend to look at things and go, oh my God, this is going to be the worst case scenario, when it could be the best. They're going to be with their friends. They're going to be in a large room. They're not going to be really noticing what's going on. Just bring the food, they'll eat, then they'll go do their thing.
I remember once I met one of my ketogenic patients at an event, and after the event, I knew they were going to have Oreo and juice outside for the kids. I'm like, oh my gosh, what is he going to do? My kids flew to the table, and of course they couldn't stop eating, and I saw my patient sitting with other friends eating his ketogenic snack. So I'm like, okay, this can be done, right? I guess once your child knows about it, knows the structure, and knows that this special diet is working, there will be compliance. So it was very nice to see that he was doing the activity as anybody else and enjoying his snack, and his snack was probably better than what my children were eating. So greater independence. So as much as the diet is structured and rigid, I think there's room for some independence. For example, if your child is a little bit older, you can ask them, sweetie, what do you want tonight? Chicken? Fine. It's going to be a chicken meal. Do you want ground beef? Fine. We'll do that too. So just them deciding the menu, I think it entitles them to a little bit of independence, and that in itself, I think, has a lot of value. What if you teach them how to weigh their foods? I mean, if they're older, maybe they'll get very into it. Oh, this is exciting. I'm helping mommy make my food. Just like we tell other parents, hey, bring your children to the kitchen. Do you want them to eat fruits and veggies? Let them cook fruits and veggies. So same thing for ketogenics. Let them weigh their foods. Maybe our children nowadays, technology is like very natural for them. Teach them how to use apps. Teach them how to use the keto calculator. Maybe that's going to create ownership, and then, they'll be a little bit happier about having to follow this diet. And for the younger ones or not so younger ones, again, I'm thinking if they can self-feed themselves with finger foods, that's nice. It gives them some independence. And again, from a clinical dietitian, ketogenic team approach, if you're a teenager that has been on the classic keto diet, but now you want to go eat with your friends, the modified Atkins is really a more flexible diet that can be done on their own with friends at social settings. So this is something else that as dietitians we would probably discuss. So the kitchen is all Jeff's, so I'm stepping aside.
If you're doing keto, you live in the kitchen. There's no way around it. I do all of my cooking for my daughter over the weekend, and so I spend probably about 10 hours or so or more on a Saturday or a Sunday, and I cook all of her dinners and all of her lunches, and then I cook her breakfast fresh in the morning every day. But as the laws of the world work, I was cooking and batching out probably 10 meals, and my scale caught on fire. So after calling every store around, and none that measured to 1/10 of a gram, I was stuck. And so I learned the hard way, you should always have a backup scale. Always, always, always have a backup scale. And then, back up just a hair. Amazon is by far the best place I found to get these scales. They're cheapest, you can get them the fastest, and mostly they're the most reliable. I use a lot of mini silicone spatulas. I probably have 50 of them at my hand. The large ones I find are really difficult for scraping the bowls and the pans because it is so large. You're not getting every little crevice of the pan or the bowl. And then once you pull the big spatula out, your big spatula is now covered in oil. So now you got to spend extra time scraping that off. So if you go with the mini ones, it cuts your time down and it gives you more maneuverability to clean the bowls and the pans. One of my biggest struggles is measuring oils or creams, because you can pour so much and it's just like that and you've got too much and you just wasted your all-in-one meal like I do. You have to start all over. So I found that using condiment squeeze bottles, like your ketchup bottles or mayonnaise bottles, and you just fill that up with oil, and then you can control the drip really, really easily to the 1/10 of a gram even. And then every morning I make my daughter, I call keto French toast. So it's an egg product. And so we take a 10 milliliter syringe, and that's how I weigh out the eggs. I know a 10 milliliter syringe is going to hold about 24 grams of egg, and it's easy to measure. So it's, try to think of ways to make your life simple, because when you're in the kitchen, it's going to be a lot of time, and these little bitty tricks like the squeeze bottle and the syringes will just cut an hour from your time.
Mm-hmm.
Is this diet, I don't hear anything about food dyes. Is it staying away from food dyes or has nothing to do with that?
That's a great question. So for the purpose of ratio, calories, there's nothing about the dyes. We do have kind of a rule when it comes to artificial sweeteners and extracts or flavorings. It's 15 drops a day. I do encounter a lot of families that they're very uncomfortable with dyes because they want a clean diet, so they stay away from dyes. But for purposes of the diet, dyes have no carbs or calories, so they can be there, but it's the family's choice whether they want to allow them or not.
For me, it totally affects my son.
I've heard that too. So with all that being said, I want to show you some very beautiful ketogenic meals and food preps created by Jeff and another mother that has a child with Dravet. So just to show you that they can look very normal and very pretty. Yes, there's a lot of work behind them, and they don't have to be this fancy every day. But they can be this fancy if you have the time and the creativity, and I think it has a lot of value. I don't know if there's anything else that the one on the far right is a very simple ketogenic meal. It's actually a picture from the Charlie Foundation. So just to show you that a very simple ketogenic meal can still look very pretty. It has color, it has texture, it's a small plate. So kind of the two extremes. I don't know if there's anything else you want to add?
What I do typically is I go to Pinterest or Reddit, and I go through and I look for keto-friendly meals, because let's face it, just because it's keto, you're going to have to rebuild it anyway. So you can take the basic structure of what they say, take it to the keto calculator, and then rebuild it. Usually when I'm creating a new meal, the first meal is not for her, it's for me, because I learned the hard way. I made her a birthday cake that was going to be absolutely delicious, and everybody who tried it got sick, except for my daughter. But I learned the hard way from now on. Is I create the first meal for me. So last weekend I had to go and create another meal. My daughter's been on 3 meals since January. Now we're up to 4. But it took me 5 adjustments in order to get the right consistency. And so just play around. There is a bunch of websites, and if you are going to do keto, I would strongly recommend getting into a support group for keto, specifically for keto for kids. I've found an incredible one on Facebook called Epilepsy, the Ketogenic Way. The members are 50% American, 50% UK, and every member of the 800 people are the most caring, loving people in the world. I've been very honored to become one of their moderators. And what we do is we go through a security check. You can't just join. You have to go through, why do you want to be here? You have to let us become friends with you. We check your Facebook page out. We don't let people get in. We don't let companies get in. We want parents helping parents. And there's a ton of great websites. Christina's posted. It's called Epilepsy, the Ketogenic Way, and it's on Facebook. And in addition to those, there's a great website based out of the UK called MatthewsFriends.org, and
Yeah.
they are spectacular.
What is it, Matthew?
MatthewsFriends.org, and they have tons of recipes. I talk with the folks there often. They're very, very friendly. They don't care where you're from. Their approach is just to help.
Guys, and also Dravet dietary approaches. I've heard from some Dravet families, they're very, very supportive too. So as much as you can reach out to other parents, please do so. And then your clinicians are backstage orchestrating, but your parents are really, your resource for creativeness, for support, for encouragement. So we'll take any questions if there's any other questions.